Sometimes I remember those folks that were trapped down there in the wreckage of the Titanic. I imagine how difficult it must have been for them to keep themselves from panicking. I prayed for them while they were alive. I prayed for their peace of mind. I prayed for their strength and courage. I really wanted them to be okay. I'm glad that my soul prays for those who are hurting. I even pray for those who have hurt me.
Human experience varies. Why not just eat these strawberries? Tigers above us and tigers below. What can we ever really know? I see you, my friend, as we move toward the end. I'm aware of my own ego.
I have tried cursing people who hurt me. It seemed like a pretty natural course to take, cursing those folks who'd done me wrong, but eventually I really did feel in myself the judgment that those curses brought upon me. This is how I know that we are one, all of us. You and I are an illusion. There is only one. That's why I felt that judgment on myself when I cursed my enemies. You know how they say that when you point your finger at someone else, there are three pointing right back at you? Judge not, lest ye be judged. You've heard that one, haven't you? Somebody told me once that holding resentments is like drinking poison and hoping that someone else dies. I have also heard from several wisdom teachers that what we resist persists. I know that this teaching on resistance is synonymous with Jesus' forgiveness teaching. Forgiveness, as I have come to understand, is how we keep our power when someone hurts us. Please don't ask me if I believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. I've met way too many of us who profess Jesus is the one Son, who seem to have no commitment to forgiveness and live very individuated, separate lives. Please don't ask me if I'm a Christian. If I say I'm a believer and I hold anything against anyone in this world, I've just shown you my hypocrisy. I've heard it said that one way to measure the degree of our enlightenment is to observe how comfortable we are with our own hypocrisy. You remember how the Apostle Paul so famously said, "All these things I do not want to do, I keep doing them, and the things I want to do, I can't seem to make myself do them." Hypocrisy is just like that. It's part of the human condition, built into the matrix. Biblically speaking, hypocrisy was born when we ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Scientifically speaking, at some point in the evolution of our consciousness, we became self-aware. We began to observe ourselves. There came a great division. We became aware of our animal nature. Our neocortexes objectified our God nature, pure being, isness. We consumed the fruit from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. We became as little gods in our own minds, and this is also when forgiveness became necessary, when the other was born in us. We came to believe ourselves to be separate from the other. Although we arose from a great communion, we came to believe in our individuated self, that one who now suffers so deeply in so many of us. Simply stated, we have become unaware of the true nature of reality. Therefore, we live out of balance with our planet and all the other beings who inhabit it. Why are we so often so selfish and hurtful? Because we are very afraid. This fear is what causes greed among us. Our greed has become so deeply embedded in our culture that we can hardly allow ourselves to see it. What are the epigenetic consequences when genocide occurs? In other words, how long before we wake up from the sins of our forefathers? There was a judgment that began weighing heavy on me as a very young boy. I was about 5 years old when I adopted the doctrine of personal shame. The shame that comes with judgment is truly sickening. It contorts the soul. It is wicked. The shame in me began shaming others by the time I was 8 years old. I felt small. I learned that if I made other people feel small, I felt bigger for a moment. How desperate and alone does an 8-year-old boy have to be to hurt other children like that? That was me. That was my manifestation of isolated suffering. They say misery loves company. I believe it is true. Misery loves company, but it cannot be in communion. It cannot be in communion because it believes itself to be alone. Misery is the belief that I am separate from you, the belief that I am somehow separate from God. In the Gospel of John, Jesus prays for us. He prays to the Divine One. He asks that we would experience our unified nature. We are not other than God. We are not separate from one another. When we believe ourselves to be separate, we suffer greatly.
All we know is all we know. All we reap is all we sow. Quantum leap, a beam of light, yeah. Heal the sick, restore our sight. I became the love that I had always needed. I was her and I was him and I was you. Who is this you?
There is no problem. We thought there was a problem when we believed ourselves to be separate, but now we have realized the true nature of reality. Have you ever read A Course in Miracles? I have. It took me 2 years to work the 1-year course. It helped me to see how I had been playing the victim. If you would have asked me if I was a victim before I did A Course in Miracles, I would have told you no.
Now I see that light in you. Now you know I see that light. You know I see that light. Now you know I see that light in you.
The inevitable result of believing oneself to be separate is victimization. I was born into victimhood, like a fish into water, and when you present to the world that way, it becomes the I that people know, the suffering individual who no one can help. How do we recover from this? Some say that we don't ever recover, but we can learn to live with it. I have learned this. The desperate search for healing is exhausting. There is no wisdom in desperation. And this brings me back to the Titanic. We know that the weight of the ocean is going to crush this vessel. If we don't panic, we can die well. If we don't give in to judgment, then we can cultivate a loving dignity instead. I know it's not easy, but it's necessary. Here's another good thing about choosing love over desperate panic. It's the right state of mind for the next faithful action. If we do have a chance of getting out of this submersible, we're going to come to that through our sound mind. And a sound mind is one which is surrendered to love. When I feel like I am down there in that submersible, I thank God, the one from whom I am not separate. The nature of God is one. There is one love. This is the true nature of reality.